right, we got pretty good parawing conditions here, going with a 3 meter for sure. It's blowing like 20 knots, southwest at Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal. Yeah, first time on the parawing. We're gonna see how it goes. We've got a few wingers out and a few kiters out. First of all, bar does float. All right. We got weed. That's not good. Oh. Packing up the kite in the water proved a little harder than I expected. I mean, I've done it with peaks before, and it's trouble with peaks as well, but considering this is only a 3 meter, it was kind of hard. All right, round one, parawinging. So far, it's challenging to go upwind. It's harder than I was expecting. Maybe I should be on the 4.2 in this much wind, but yeah, I can get on foil, but I'm basically just holding ground when I'm up on foil, not going upwind. And then all the other times I'm not on foil, I'm going back down. So we got the good old walk of shame. That's where I launched from up there. Yeah, it's going to be a journey. All right, time for round two. Also something I didn't mention is I got a new action camera. I swapped the DJI Action 5. It's giant compared to my old one, but at least the stabilized video should not suck as bad as my old one. And the main reason I chose this one is battery life. It's got way more battery life. So, yeah, hope the video quality is good.
I was coming in to switch to the 4.2 meter, and it feels really windy now. In round 2, I did manage to actually make it upwind a bit while it was strong, but then it kind of lulled out, and I just couldn't get up on foil anymore. But feels pretty windy again, so maybe I'll give the 3 another shot, and then I'll switch to the 4. I should really try the 4 in these conditions just to see how it feels being overpowered. Alright, gonna give the 4.2 a try, even though like 3 meter wing would be perfect right now for me, so it's kind of sad that I can't make the 3 meter pair wing work that well. I can when I'm powered, but once it lulls a little bit, I just struggle. So let's see what it's like being overpowered. Check out the dork factor of this giant camera. Look at that bad boy. Yeah, so he's just flying like a small ram air kite on the bridle, so it's super far away from him. So he's flying a prism tensor, whatever that is. I think it's a trainer kite. Trying to get hooked in, not so easy. Finally harnessed in. Feels great. Maybe a little too long. Shorten a bit. Still working on that foot switch. Okay, that's a little more challenging than I thought it'd be to reel it in. way easier to get on foil, but it's ripping my arms off. I just can't handle it. It's too much. So I'm gonna go back to the 3. I'd rather struggle on the 3 and be underpowered than be out here overpowered. The amount I'm overpowered means I should be able to make the 3 work. So, as you can see, the wing is overpowered, but when I depower it, you lose all the steering control, but it behaves quite well overpowered, like I have to say. Oh shit. You know, like it just kind of folds in on the tips a little. Definitely can, it can handle being overpowered. It's a pretty good wing. On the 3 meter, it was light, but I managed to pump up in both directions. It was still challenging, but I think I'll be able to get better at it. But something was weird was going on with my board. I think my foil's loose or something. I don't know what the hell, but something wasn't right with the foil. So I'm calling it a day for now. All right, first session on the Parawing in the books. I rode the 3.0, and then I rode the 4.2, and then I rode the 3.0 again. It was definitely more challenging than I was expecting. It's not crazy hard or anything, but it's definitely, it pulls pretty hard. If you're underpowered, it's hard to get up, and if you're overpowered, it really pulls hard on your arms. I have really bad time with grip though. I know other people like wing all the time without a harness and don't have any problems, but that's not me. So I was underpowered on the 3 and struggled, and then I switched to the 4.2 when I was like way overpowered. It was easy to get up once I was on the 4.2, but my arms were getting ripped off. I managed to get into the harness and go upwind both ways, no problem, when I was overpowered, but it was just too much. And then I switched back to the 3, and it was later at that point, and I still managed to pump up in both directions, but it was challenging. It's definitely, you know, a different technique to learn for pumping up on foil. Then I had to call it a day because my mast base plate to mast connection had come loose, which that's never happened to me before, so I don't know if I just didn't crank the bolts hard enough. Who knows, but that was kind of disconcerting. Pretty happy with the Flow D-Wings. They fly quite nice. They depower really well. The downside though is when you're depowering, you have no steering control, so you really have to like power them up a bit to steer them. Yeah. So the downside is that you have to power them up to steer them. But they handled quite well. They handle well in the water. On the 4.2, I managed to go upwind, so then I got to ride downwind a bit. I didn't manage to get I didn't even manage to successfully get it into my hands. It's definitely like, you know, gonna take a while to learn how to do that well, especially with the gloves on. It's a little harder to like corral all the lines, and you know, it is pretty, you know, if it's windy and you're overpowered, it's okay because it still flies. But I feel like if I was on the 3, doing that, it would be in your way, and it got in my way a couple of times when it was just kind of hanging down. And yeah, so I think if you're not, you know, if you don't get to the point where you can reel it in, it is in your way quite a bit. Conditions were pretty good today. Like I would have been out there on my 3 meter all day, just flagging out no problem on my 3.1 meter wing. So I was a little annoyed I couldn't make the 3.0 D-wing work that well. Even when I was up on foil, I haven't looked at the angles, but I don't think my upwind angles were very good on the 3 meter. My 4 meter, on the 4.2, my upwind angles felt pretty good, and I was able to hook in both directions. It's a little harder to hook in the way I had it set up. I'm gonna try a different, the more standard way to hook in as well. I feel like The reason I had it with a single line hooked in, I feel like the distance you want to be hooked in is actually quite long, and doing the standard like double back doesn't, you know, it puts the bar too close to where you want to hold it more at arm's length when you're riding these things. So I might have to get a longer harness line so I can have it doubled over, or I'll just keep trying the single line version. The single line version worked okay, like it wasn't a problem. The only hard part is the actual hooking in, and it's kind of annoying that it kind of tangles up in the lines a bit. Didn't have any problems with like controlling the kite or getting it launched or anything. It behaved well, and I've got, you know, tons of experience with the peaks, so I've water launched those many times. So yeah, they behave very well. Yeah, it's definitely a little more challenging than winging, but I mean, I'm good at winging at this point, so you know, when you're learning winging is pretty challenging too. When it comes to slogability, I think it doesn't slog as well as a wing. It slogs okay for sure. I could slog slightly upwind, but I couldn't on a wing. I can slog quite upwind quite easily, and I haven't tested true like wind dying slogability. Obviously, when the wind dies, you know, you're probably going to be better rolling these up and paddling, because if the wind can't even keep them in the air, they're not going to get you going. And they definitely sit deeper. They need to sit pretty deep in the window. Yeah, they just want to. They will fly forward really easily if they get powered up, but their default behavior sits pretty deep in the window. So I don't think the really light wind slogging will be that great on them. So I don't know that I'd want to get a 5.5. I think I'll probably have more fun with the wing still, and maybe not, I don't know. But I don't think I'd want to spend the full money to get the 5.5, just because of how sometimes it can be super marginal and you're holding the wing up instead of the wing holding you up, and these things obviously don't do that. Getting in and out of the water, the tide was great for me, so I could just like set up in you know, chest deep water and launch the wing while standing in the ground. So that was easy, you know, easy enough to carry them rolled up into the water. Didn't have any real trouble with line tangles. I love the colors on the bridle of the D-wing. They're awesome, super easy to tell what lines are where and how to like untangle them, and yeah, it's really good. Yeah, sometimes I didn't manage any foot switches. I did manage several of my strong side jibes though, but whenever it came time to do the foot switch after the jibe, I just flubbed those. But you know, it'll take time. My foot switches aren't that great at any time, so I didn't manage any weak side jibes, I don't think. But the way I do my weak side jibes is I do my foot switch first and then I jibe, and I didn't hit any foot switches anyways, so basically I failed before I even started the jibes. Yeah, I didn't try any tacks, obviously. The one thing I do kind of find annoying is when you're launching the kite and when you're steering it, like when it's sort of in the water, you really have to put it deep in the window. So at that time, when you're holding it deep in the window, you're really getting pulled straight downwind. So those times when you fall with the Parawing, you're penalized a lot more for getting up. I actually found I could get up straight to my knees without doing rodeo quite easily, because it gives you, it's that extra point in the air. You can just go straight up onto your knees like that. So maybe that's the ticket. But with a wing, you have the wing flagged and you get to rodeo and you're not really, it's just pushing you in the back, and then instantly you're like going upwind, not downwind. Whereas with this thing, you get to rodeo and then you really have to like just reef it so it's pulling you downwind. I also found that the takeoffs were I had to actually bear off and go quite downwind for takeoffs when it was light. And I mean, I used to figure that same thing for winging as well, but it felt worse with the Parawing than winging, in terms of like the amount of wind I had and the amount of pull I could feel. I felt like I should have been able to get up without having to bear off as much. But so yeah, you definitely pay the price for falls more on the Parawings, or at least, you know, after one session we'll see how it goes once I get actually better at this stuff. But yeah, it's challenging, but it's not crazy hard. I really find that they want to fly one-handed. Like they fly so much more naturally one-handed than they do two-handed. When flying them two-handed, I find it's best to have your hands like right beside each other, because it's not the same as like a wing where you're doing this. I definitely kind of have gotten used to being able to use the wing as a counterweight to stop myself from falling. You can't do that with these, obviously. You just kind of have to reef it down into the power zone. So again, you know, more times just getting dragged downwind. If you're trying to slog and you need it for stability, you'll have to like put it deep in the power zone. I definitely feel like with winging, you can sit in rodeo on the board and have a better time. Like you can just sit there and relax, or you can just sit there and putter upwind easily without any you know, strain on your body. Whereas with this, it felt more like kiting, where you've always got the kite going. I know you can backstall it onto the water and do that, but it doesn't feel as like free, you know, in terms of, you know, like energy and just being able to sit there, as it does with winging. With winging, you can just like hang out in rodeo all you want and it feels totally good. With this, it feels like more, okay, I'm going, or you have to actually like fully stop and kind of pack the kite up. Doing the backstall pack up when it's in water, I didn't like that at all, because it packs the back lines shorter than the front lines, and that creates basically a basin of water. So it's, you know, it can be tricky to get it out. So I found that just laying it on the water and just kind of like rolling it in the lines was the best bet for that. But yeah, it's definitely not as, you're either going or you're not going with this. Whereas with winging, it's way easier. Just take a 30-second, 45-second break, just sitting there, you know, taking the scenery, hang out, catch your breath, whatever. But yeah, good times. I think I was on the water total of 4 hours today. You know, 4-degree air, 6-degree water. The hands definitely were cold at times. Open palm gloves. I was wondering, hey, maybe with winging I can't wear any thick gloves at all. My arms just go to hell if I do that. I was thinking, hey, with this maybe I'll be able to wear gloves. No chance here either. I think this one is actually harder on your grip and your arm pump than winging is. It definitely takes a good grip for this. So you know, my hands were good, were warm enough in 4 degrees, so it's fine. But yeah, I definitely can't see myself riding without a harness at all. Like I'd say it's more strain on my arms than my 3.1 meter wing. When I'm riding that, I can ride that pretty well without a harness, but it's, you know, really easy amount of pull. This is definitely more pull than that wing gives, and like I said, my arms can't handle a ton of pull. So yeah, but it rides pretty well in the harness. Like, I no complaints there. It doesn't feel good to try and steer it in the harness with 2 hands. It's better, because that's almost like 3 hands, because when you're riding it normally, it's like your upwind hand is the harness and your backwind hand is the steering. So when it's in the harness, it's the same thing, where, you know, the harness is holding it in the front and you're just holding the power, depower, and steering. Good times.